This is VOCM Open Line. Call 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626. The views and opinions of this program are not necessarily those of this station. The biggest conversation in Newfoundland and Labrador starts now. Here's VOCM Open Line host Paddy Daly.
Well, all right, and good morning to you. Thank you very much for tuning into the program. It's Monday, November the 17th. This is Open Line. I'm your host, Paddy Daly. David Williams, he's the producer of the program. You'll be speaking with Dave when you pick up the phone to give us a shout in the queue and on the air. If you're in the St. John's metro region, the number to dial is 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. So to kick it off with sports, where can you start other than the 112th playing of the Grey Cup? I know Dave Williams is a big football fan, but that's the NFL brand of football. We probably have the fewest number of CFL fans per province in the country, maybe PEI. But now that we've got amateur and minor football being played here, I wonder, are there more CFL fans part of the fold? Because I lived in Alberta and got an up front and close taste of the CFL, I do appreciate it, and I did watch the Grey Cup last night. So Saskatchewan wins their first Grey Cup in quite a long time. I think they haven't won in about a dozen years. Their quarterback, Trevor Harris, was pretty slick. He set a record for completion percentage-wise. 82.5% of passes found their home, versus the Alouettes, who just threw the ball around, dropped it when they had a chance, and they lose 25-17. And for folks who will follow the CFL, for Saskatchewan to win in Winnipeg is extra special. So anyway, on a more bright note, so the ATP Finals is the final tournament of the year men's professional tennis. Only the 8 top players in the world get to play in it. Felix Auger-Aliassime from Montreal made it all the way to the semi-finals, lost to Alcaraz, but he finishes the year number 5 in the world. I mean, that's just tremendous. He had a fantastic second half of 2025. Felix Auger-Aliassime, number 5 in the world. And for anybody who watched any of the tennis. So the final, of course, was world number 1 Alcaraz versus world number 2 Sinner. The gap between Sinner, Alcaraz, and the rest of the world is extraordinary. Like, nobody else is even in the same conversation, let alone the same league. But anyway. And one more Montreal note. And so this is a brutal story. And of course, by now, everybody knows who's following the NHL or follows Montreal Canadiens. Young Alex Newhook from St. John's, gone 4 months at least. Just a quick note on that. For starters, it's a real shame. For young athletes, and especially when you make it into the elite ranks as a pro, you know when your competitor is in a prone position. And then you should keep your stick away from his feet or his legs and just not make bad situations worse. And in this case, the Dallas Star defenseman gets 2 minutes for hooking or tripping, and Newhook gets 4 months. And Buddy knew Newhook was in a bad spot. So anyway, on a brighter note, Ryan Green from St. John scored his second goal of the year for the Chicago Blackhawks. So there's something there. Okay. All right, so the Happy Tree kicked off on Saturday, as did Dial a Carol. Big thanks to everyone at VOCM Cares and those who made contributions. Dial a Carol raised over $13,500. The good work being done by VOCM Cares, whether it be the Happy Tree or the Buddy Bears or Coat for Kids or the Thanksgiving food drive. Pretty nice effort. And for those of you who tuned in, I hope you enjoyed the show. And that brings the beginning of the Christmas music season to your VOCM, your thoughts. All right. So, man, the wet and windy weather, pretty miserable stuff. Only Dexter hates it more than I do. Now, I hear a lot, at least it's not snow, fair ball. With the amount of rain, hopefully that's making some appreciable difference in the reservoir levels for water supply, because the past summer was absolutely brutal. But the wet and windy weather, here's some of the numbers on the Burin Peninsula. They've already got a month's worth of rain by the 17th of November. So anyway, on that front, and this is good news, and it's not brand new, but more contracts have been let to continue to build fire breaks. You know, even prior to this past wildfire season, we've been talking about fire breaks and cleaning the fire load or the windfall for quite a long time on this program. So 2 more contracts to do that. And of course, used as a firefighting tactic during the Kingston Fire, Martin Lake and Paddy's Pond. Not going to get into the value of the contracts because the work just needs to be done. The Liberal government had put forward some fire break contracts. The PCs have followed suit. But one more message to those of you out in CBN who are still living with the loss of everything, and many families experience exactly that. So whether it be the dragging of the feet to come to their aid with some pledged financial support, If you want to bring your stories forward, please do. And again, I get plenty of emails asking very basic questions of when the red flags and the warnings about a potential arsonist in the region were apparently not investigated. Boy, oh boy, you wonder this devastation could have been avoided, but more fire break contracts, probably a very good idea. All right, what's this? Oh, yeah. All right, so a sad story coming from Signal Hill. For those of you who make your way up to Signal Hill for a look around, you delight in the presence of some of the Signal Hill foxes. Now, when you hear, don't feed the bears, and in this case, the phrase is being used as a fed fox is a dead fox. One of the Signal Hill foxes has been found dead along the side of the road. It's not an insignificant story. Because whether we talk about wildlife being displaced with development or what have you, it is probably an important reminder that wild animals, we really should hesitate to feed them. When we lived in Jasper National Park, Parks Canada policed this aggressively. If you got caught feeding a wild animal, you were in trouble. But in this case, people were quick to feed the foxes and share the pictures or videos on social media. I'll never forget the picture of a little fox down scarfing up a feed of Timbits. So on top of should not be feeding the fox, but feeding them Timbits, what have you. So then they learn their need and want to hunt. Consequently, they don't teach their young to hunt. They expect their food to be delivered to them. Then it's the consequence of bringing animals into high traffic areas like Signal Hill. So I guess it's just that gentle and friendly reminder. Please don't feed the wild animals. Here's a quote coming from one of the women involved as a wildlife rescuer. If you're an animal lover, a true animal lover, then feeding these foxes is not something you should ever partake in. The end. Anyway, you want to talk about it? We can do it. And we've told the story and had a conversation with Dwan Street last week here on the show regarding the most recent cod stock assessment in 3PS. So that's one thing, and anyone who's intimately involved in the inshore harvest, then inshore fishery, please do indeed share your thoughts this morning. And the implications of offshore draggers where the fish are aggregating during spawning season, it's unbelievable. It's basically admitting serious mistakes were made. And the FFAW, they were right. Other members of the inshore fishery, they were right. And then you move on to, I don't know what the upcoming season will like insofar as Fisheries Minister Loyola O'Driscoll and the processing sector. You got to keep putting it out there. When the plant in St. Mary's was destroyed by fire in an already complicated processing sector and the need for more capacity, which that alarm bell has been rang many, many times over the last number of years, but now the consequences of losing that pretty significant plant are a massive problem. So I don't know if anything can be done to expand processing capacity necessarily for this upcoming season, especially when we talk about snow crab and then that overlap with cod, which, again, I don't know what we're going to do, but you want to take it on? Let's do it. All right, you don't need to drive very far or for very long, especially around this neck of the woods. I can't speak with any authority about other parts of the province necessarily, but it's the perils of dangerous, aggressive, distracted driving. So last Friday was the World Day of Remembrance for Road Traffic Victims. It took place at Confederation Building, as it does every year. So you'll have government officials there, police officers there, and most importantly, families who have lost a loved one because of the unbelievably aggressive traits held by many of the motoring public around here. You don't know what it's going to take. Like this morning coming in on the Outer Ring Road, it was pretty brutal. The wind was up, the rain was pounding, the ruts were full of water. I was in the right-hand lane, and I'm not professing to be the very best driver in the world, but I was going around 80. And that felt like as fast as I should be going. But you know full well, the heroes that are willing to take it on, even if you're driving a big truck, the roads don't care what you're driving insofar as the potential to hydroplane. So I just don't know what gets into people's heads when they get behind the wheel. For those of you out there who know full well in your quiet moments, you drive too fast, you drive too aggressively, you don't mind getting on the phone, you don't pay attention, you're roaring around like it's nobody's business, maybe, just maybe, some of the mandatory attendance to hear from some of these families who have lost a loved one because people are out there driving like a bat out of hell. So, again, not sure what we're going to have to do. And people say, well, boy, if there was more cops out there. Yeah, I get that. Nothing slows you down like a police cruiser, but it shouldn't come to needing a cop to be there for you to slow down and just not be so aggressive behind the wheel. And again, around St. John's, it's absolute madness. It really, truly is madness. And every single day, there's probably a lot of close calls that don't get reported, and there's probably plenty of collisions that don't get reported as well. And certainly, the reporting of tickets being issued should probably be a pretty frequent thing, so that even if you don't see a police cruiser, to know that they're out there and they're going to get you, and hopefully they do, just in an effort to slow you down. And we can add to that the whole speed camera conversation, which I know I'm in the minority for thinking it's an okay idea. All right, I just mentioned cell phones. You see it all the time. People are still willing to get on their phone. There's a news in the national media which is not new, and it's about the lack of competition in the world of telecom. Because between the big three, they dominated. It only got worse when the purchase of Shaw by Rogers was approved, and it never should have been. Now they're talking about things like call center layoffs, which we don't know, and Rogers won't give us a specific number about the numbers of people no longer working in call centers. But the reports of people going online to try to click a link to cancel their services, just to be told the link is broken, up in the corner of the screen pops a chat bot saying you're going to have to cancel by calling, and you try. And then you're on hold, and the elevator music, and transfer from department to department. This one poor bloke trying to cancel his business internet service 7 hours later. 7 hours to try to cancel a service where, in other countries, 2 clicks, you're done. And that should be the way here in this country too. But when people go on to point out, and here, the irony is not lost on me, and this is a quote coming from a fellow named Eugene Chan, an associate professor at the Ted Rogers School of Management at Toronto's Metropolitan University. The lack of competition. It reduces the need for these telcos to compete and to provide good customer service, because they think customers need us, so we don't really need to do anything to improve our service. He's probably not wrong. Then Rogers, through emails, what have you, talk about there's a driving digital adoption, which basically means that it's going to be more and more, take a guess, artificial intelligence. So anyway, today, last week, I guess it was on Friday, I didn't speak to it very much because I think people might be tired of it. But let's just get some numbers out there. Charlie Oliver called last week, representing Think NL, talk about industrial strategy for power generation in Labrador and what the power could be used for. The mining sector would be the first to put up their hand and say, how about us? Charlie also wants people to consider artificial intelligence and those data centers as maybe being part of the economic pie. Let's get a look at some of the numbers. And these are American, but I think we can directly translate many of them to this country, given the expansive explosion of artificial intelligence. Okay. In the past decade, they referenced the U.S. data center additions were small, only a few gigawatts per year. Then things changed dramatically in 2020. Just look at the stock market and how much is reliant on artificial intelligence and the hyper-acceleration. Okay. And this is a chart coming from JP Morgan Chase, who's also looking at the Upper Churchill deal. So they're talking about capacity in gigawatts, either built or under construction, planned or stalled by year, highlighting just how sharply the demand has grown. So one of the key takeaways is the spike for plant capacity in 2025. It shoots all the way to nearly 80 gigawatts of data center projects. 80 gigawatts just for that application. It's great if we're talking about how they'll use it in the healthcare system or engineering or in academia to peruse through copious amounts of data in seconds flat. But boy, oh boy, Morgan Stanley goes on to warn in a recent client note that the United States could face a significant electricity deficit as artificial intelligence builds out to accelerate. They're talking about a shortfall on the grid of 13 gigawatts of capacity, roughly a fifth of what the sector is expected to require. We project that the U.S. power shortfall through 2028 of 44 gigawatts before considering innovative time-to-power solutions that do not rely on the typical grid interconnection process. People love fooling around with AI. I get it. It can generate some pretty curious and interesting videos and the like in a heartbeat. But in the big scheme of things, with the power consumption, the water required, I don't know why we're not having more of a conversation on that front. But hey, let's go. And we can talk about industrial strategy in Labrador, absolutely. Question today at VOCM is about, are we to be surprised that this province didn't see any projects on Ottawa's major project fast track list? Not really. So, a couple of things. And in this case, I don't think former Premier Hogan is wrong. Why would the federal government be involved with the Upper Churchill when the project seems to be in limbo? Not because I say so, because Premier Wakeham has pretty much placed it there for now, until whatever the independent review is going to look like, or whenever that's going to take place, or whenever this binding referendum might be into the offing. So that one. And Beta Nord, I said last week that it's pretty much an economics decision, final investment decision yet to be made. And as pointed out, rightfully so, by an in-tune listener, there's a bit more to it, and fair ball. Between the benefits agreement that the province will have to sign with Equinor, and then some of the work to be done at the board level, the development plan and benefit plan, which is a different relationship than simply the royalties and jobs and that kind of stuff between the province and Equinor itself. So maybe there's an opportunity for the feds to get involved in that particular process, in the final release of all the permits and some additional environmental work, even though we know the green light has come from then Minister Stephen Guilbeault, which was already pretty curious, but they need fisheries permits, telecommunications approvals, follow up on other conditions regarding environmental approvals. So yeah, there maybe is a role on that front for Beta Nord to have appeared on that list. This morning, or today, there's a First Minister's meeting, the first for Premier Wakeham, and on that list, of course, will be questions asked by the country's premiers of the Prime Minister about the projects that were not on the list, and probably questions about some of the projects that are on the list, considering the fact that many of these projects were already well underway insofar as approvals and all of the fast-tracking component that the feds are talking about. So, and then a part of the conversation will be about tariff relief and what have you. And today in Parliament is the last vote on the budget. And we've talked a fair bit about the budget. And the very first question to Minister Thompson when she called to promote the budget is we asked about, for the first time ever, there's been a split between what is considered operational spending and capital spending. Because we've never done it before, and it does sort of give the opportunity for the budget to mislead, balancing on the operational side and what they'll refer to as opposed to spending, but investments on the capital side. The Parliamentary Budget Office, of course, has had a look. They've done some pretty good work over the years. So it's all about how we define what becomes operations and how we define what becomes capital investment or capital spending. Here's a really good example that they break down. For example, the definition of corporate income tax credits as capital spending, whereas corporate income tax revenue is considered operational. So there's a bit of a blur. The budget for 2025 claims it will spend $311.5 billion on capital over the next 5 years. When the PBO goes back to using more traditional definitions or conventional definitions, capital spending totals just $217 billion. So there's a pretty big difference, about 30% less. Adds up to around $94 billion if the more conventional or traditional definitions were applied. Now, it does not change the water on the beans of exactly how much money is being spent in the budget and or the deficit at $73.8 billion or $78.3 billion. But it does have a flair of, I'm not going to say cooking the books because that's the political hyperbole that's not helping, but it does indeed present numbers in a far different fashion than it would have in the past. Now, is there any reason to believe that the budget is going to fail today and consequently a snap election? I doubt it. The NDP will play whatever role, abstain from the vote or what have you, but I guess we'll all find out when the final votes are cast because this is a confidence motion. If the government falls, and I'm not so sure either party is necessarily prepared to go right back to the booth, the voting booths, but based on law, if the budget falls today and a snap election has to be called, it is as early as Boxing Day or the 9th of January by law. So, I mean, I don't know if anyone wants the government to fall and another $600 or $700 million election take place just months later, but that's what's on the line today in Ottawa. Oh, and I mentioned the First Minister's meeting. Talk about tariffs and what have you, but there's also a meeting between Premier Wakeham, who's chairing the annual Atlantic Premiers and New England Governors Conference today. One quick question I would have is, can we get an update? And I know it's going to be tough for the Premier to give us a distinct update here because he's relatively new in the job, but what has been achieved or what are we working towards with that office in Boston? It'd be nice to know exactly what, and whether we've expanded from just economic opportunities to things like trying to attract healthcare professionals, members of academia, because the opportunities are there. They're doing it in other provinces. All right, last one. Politics is nasty. It certainly can be. And politics can be quite ugly. But over the last number of months, the ugliest of politics has reared its head. And this is basically an American story, although it could have Canadian implications. It certainly does when we talk about the level of political discourse or the toxic nature of it. It's remarkable to me that we find ourselves in a place where we have to play hyper-partisan politics when it comes to pedophilia. I mean, even some MAGA pundits are trying to justify that, just being barely legal or almost legal, well, that's okay. Just grotesque. So I don't know why and how anyone's defending it, but this week could be very testy for the rich, powerful, suspected pedophiles. And I'm getting whiplash trying to keep up with who thinks the information should be released. But I suppose we're at a place now where whatever Epstein estate documents or Epstein emails or Epstein files, I suppose they've been appropriately or adequately sanitized so that now all of a sudden the president is once again calling for the release like he did during the campaign, and then it moved off to it was a hoax and all the rest of it. Let's just put the information out there. And I can't believe the minority are the ones saying, if it was Clinton or Biden or Trump or Soros or Gates or any notable Republican or any notable Democrat, any leader of industry, any icon of business, any celebrity, regardless of who they are, where they're from, what their background is, who they vote for, if you have been found to have potentially raped a child, let's investigate, prosecute, and punish. How about that? Just for a novel idea. But all of a sudden, politics is all about protecting one side from another, and the president asking for the Department of Justice just to investigate Democrats. Look, there should be things that we can all agree on. And one of them is if rich, powerful men are raping children, that should be enough for any of us, regardless of who you vote for, regardless of who you idolize. Idolizing a politician is like pretending that the stripper actually likes you. We're on Twitter. We're VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. When we come back, let's have a great show to kick off the week. That can only happen if you're in the queue to talk about whatever's on your mind. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Very quickly, I know Premier Wakeham has pledged to close the office of Boston. My question is whether or not we can actually point to anything that may have been achieved, anything material, since the office has been open in Boston. That's all. Let's go. And Zach Power came in and reminded me of that. He's right. Line number one. Peter, you're on the air.
Yeah, good morning, Paddy.
Good morning to you.
It's a bit of a stormy one, but it's starting to fade down now. Anyway, we'll get on to what I wanted to call you about. They're more of a concerned citizen than a fish harvester, I guess. But over the past number of years, you and I had a lot of conversations about cod fishery and 3PS. And I call your show continuously. A lot of fish harvesters call your show, actually, trying to prevent bottom trawling for codfish in 3PS. But it didn't matter if it was progressive, PCs or Liberals or whoever. Nobody listened. And come to the union, well, fish harvesters, we got together and we went to Keith Sullivan, Dave Decker, Bill Broderick, we went to all the MPs, MHAs, open line shows, NTV, CBC, but nobody heard. And we're up against a brick wall, but I guess this morning, a lot of the people knows that regardless what the companies say, a lot of people knows that the fish harvesters were right in this particular. They not only destroyed the fish again, they destroyed the habitat that the fish stay on, and they fish it in the most vulnerable time of the year. Up around February, stuff like that, we're congregating together on St. Pierre Bank and those places and the gullies there. I'll just give you, for those who don't know, Paddy, 3PS fishery in 1993 closed 1 year after the cod moratorium. It reopened again in 1997. I got this written down now, so I don't want to get it wrong. And there's a quota of 10,000 tons. It was called an index fishery. And it jumped as high as 30,000 tons in between that up to 1999. It's from 97, 99, I believe. And okay, so that today is 1,000, I believe, 465 tons, or that's what they're saying anyway. So that's for the people that don't know. Most of the fish harvesters in 3PS know. We done everything we possibly could. You know, like in order to govern, you know, you got to be able to say no as well as you got to be able to say yes. But you know, like you got to do it on evidence, the past and the present. Well, I guess right now it's the present, isn't it? It's back to where we were to before. And those same boats are fishing the northeast coast now as well. Just say the 3PS fishers fishers on the northeast coast, and the rest of the government that's governing them in that particular area. You will deal with the same thing within a short period of time. A decade from today, there will be none. And that's my opinion on that. And, you know, I don't know what your opinion on it is, but I think it's mismanaged. I think the fishery was badly mismanaged. It was mismanaged by the union of the day back then. It was managed by the provincial government, and it was mismanaged by the federal governments. Well, and I think... Go ahead, I'm sorry.
Well, DFO kind of said exactly that last week. You know, they said, well, we can't fix mistakes of the past. Well, I mean, boy, that's, you know, pretty easy way to gloss over what is a pretty big issue for the harvesters at 3PS. And just for context, so not only is the stock smaller than they thought, but the growth is slower than they expected as well. And then you talk about the size and the older fish. The evidence is quite clear. Fewer older fish. They went on to say the large percentage of fish under 8 years old, and those older than 6 years are on average half the weight they should be. So it's a dramatic problem.
Yes, and if you destroy the habitat that fish congregate in and give birth or whatever, spawn to new ones, and the food source for that fish won't stay in that particular area and stuff like that, and moves out of the area, that'd be a good way to lose weight, I would think. But anyway, I'm sure they're listening, but they're not hearing again this morning, because you say DFO said what you just said, and that's a defense statement more so than a way to fix the problem for the future. But the problem for the 3PS got to be fixed again now, you know. And some fishers will get fish in 3PS. There's no two ways about that, you know. Some will get it basically when there is basically none. And that's been proven too. But for the cod stock in 3PS, in my opinion, yes, it's in the critical zone. Has been in the critical zone for some time now. And, you know, like I think are really badly mismanaged. And I really feel the government, the federal government, should compensate the fish harvesters in 3PS until the fish stocks rebuild so that they can fish it again as a commercial fisher.
Yeah, I don't know if anything like that is going to happen, any reparations, so to speak. And how would that even work, I wonder?
I don't know how it would work, Paddy Boy. I don't know, I really don't. But, you know, like, I'm not looking for compensation. I don't think that's the purpose of this call. The purpose of the call, you got to hold somebody liable for what they're doing wrong. And everybody else, or every other thing that goes wrong, is blamed on government. Yes, and there's a lot of compensation around, you know, like for various things. But we're such a small amount of people in 3PS, I guess now, compared to back in 1993, because a lot of licenses have combined, you know. Well, what can I say? You know, like we haven't got a lot to fight the battle with, unless the FFAW and our MAJ is, and we got them in this area. We got them progressive, conservative, liberal, and we got them MAJ is the same thing. So, like our particular person right now, MAJ is Jeff Dwyer, and then you got. Lovelace on the south coast farther up, so, and one on the east side the fence. So we'll see what they got to say, you know, see what they're going to do, or are they going to do anything, you know. But anyway, I don't know. Maybe I'm rambling on, Paddy, but I want to tell you that it's not good, you know. It's not good when you're down to basically one species, you know, like, and you got to admit, like the only thing that was different from the trawlers before 1992, they turned them in from side trawlers into stern trawlers, and then they turned them into factory freezer trawlers. So, you know, now they go out like 6 weeks at a time. You don't even have to return the port. So it's on, and they give them the right to go out. The federal government give the factory freezer trawlers the right to go out into the gullies and fish from November till February. I didn't think it mattered about a cod quota. It was just the fact that they were dragging in the same place at the same time, regardless what they were dragging for. So that'll destroy any habitat, destroy anything that was in its path. Anyway, Paddy, thanks for taking my call.
I appreciate your time, Peter. Thank you.
All the best to you.
You too. Bye-bye. And I mean, compensation for, I don't know if that's going to happen, but we've heard the industry look for compensation when it came to things out of their control, whether it be ice or weather or things like that. So it's not like it's unheard of. How that could work here, I don't know. And that's why I didn't mention the judicial recount business. Well, we did on Friday, and we can put it back out there. So Justice Fons Fowler denied recounts in Lewisport, Twillingate, plus Central West Bellevue, but is proceeding in Topsail Paradise. And interestingly, Topsail Paradise had the biggest vote discrepancy versus the other two, went 1864, and in Topsail Paradise 104. So I guess this is as much about irregularities and whether or not there's ever going to be enough votes that are changed to see the PC majority go away. I have no idea, but I guess we'll all find out. So now we'll see Mark Bott and Jeff Dwyer get sworn in officially, but until all of the Justice Fowler's business is taken care of, the House of Assembly will not reopen. And that could mean a fairly long stretch of time between the election and the House actually being opened. Anyway, that's out there for your consideration. Let's go ahead and get a break in. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 3. Say good morning to the NDP member elected in, serving folks St. John's East, Kitty Video. That's Sheila O'Leary. Sheila, you're on the air.
Hello, good morning, Paddy. It's a wild day out there today in the city of St. John's, for sure.
Well, it's pitch black. I can't see Kenmount Terrace.
You know what, look, now I understand why everybody's so delighted with those Marnini jackets. Look, I just wanted to give you a call here. I know there's lots on the docket here, but one of the things that I certainly heard from on the doorstep when I was campaigning, and of course the calls continue as we head into winter, is about the soaring cost of home heating. So just wanted to chat with you a little bit about that, because we're basically asking Premier Wakeham, what is the plan? What's the plan to help people heat their homes? We certainly had a commitment to cutting the provincial HST from home heating, and that was across the board for electricity, propane, oil, wood, everything, which would save, approximately about 10% off the bills. So, so that was something that we were promising all the way throughout the campaign. Of course, here we are, and we're, going to be the critics, so we're going to make sure to try to hold people to account. And so we have heard nothing. What is happening for people who are, especially people who we know are most vulnerable, the seniors? People are afraid to turn off the thermostats. Now, today, of course, we got a little bit of a spike in heat, but, that's not going to last. And this has to be addressed. How are people on a fixed or low income? How are they possibly going to deal with the additional stress of keeping warm in the wintertime? So that's it. We're asking the Premier Wakeham, what is it that you're going to do? Because people are out there struggling, and we're hearing it all the time.
It's always an interesting and a very good question. My question to you and others, we could talk about cutting the provincial portion of tax off of anything, whether it be, half on the gasoline and or on how you heat your home. But when you mention people who are struggling, I wonder, and I know that adding different layers of bureaucracy is not necessarily very helpful, but not everybody listening needs a breakdown their heat bill. But folks who do need it, they need it now. So would you suggest a means test or just across the board?
No, just across the board. NDP stands for universality, and that's in all the things that we do. The reality is that, we don't get asked when we go to the grocery store how much income we have, or, and how we pay. It's a basic necessity, home energy. And so that is the approach that the NDP certainly takes, is for universality. It's not unlike, how we've been lobbying for a guaranteed basic income as well. It's about ensuring that everybody has access, that there's no reason for people to be suffering in this day and age, especially in the resource-rich province that we live in. That we have such an incredible privilege here. But people are continuing to suffer, and the rates are continuing to go up. We had a rate increase in July. Another one just went up and stuff now recently. you know what? It's going to be a tough winter for a lot of people, and these are some of the most basic things. We're talking about food. We're talking about staying warm in our houses, and we do know, because we're hearing from constituents, from people who, the kind of choices that they have to make between whether or not they're going to eat, whether or not they're going to stay warm, and it's, you know, it's just not acceptable. It's not acceptable for us living in this province that we need to take care of everybody here.
Yeah, let's stick with heat for a second, then we'll move on to food. You know, unless you're really a keen follower of the prices and the PUB and the annual adjustment that comes in July, which is always a thing, just imagine if that was a January 1st exercise as opposed to July. Because when the PUB said, you know, the request was over 10%, but they landed at 7%, saving the ratepayer. But in the summertime, when very few have a very high power bill, it kind of goes unnoticed. You know, 7% of $50 is a lot different than 7% of $100 when it comes to looking at your bill. So if we move that exercise to January, there would be a lot more focus, I would suggest, amongst the rate-paying public, number one.
Well, there certainly would be. And you know what? Look, there's a lot of issues. I know that you're talking about them all the time, Patty, and you know, it's just wonderful to hear from all of the people who call into your show. There's so many things that people have to be concerned about. But I can guarantee you, staying warm and fed in Newfoundland and Labrador, it's like it's a massive priority. Not only do we, you know, live in a winter climate where we have to address this. It's not like we have any other options. And of course, because of our proximity, our geographic location. I mean, the challenges with food, access is always an issue. So that's going to lot more money onto each of the, you know, the residents and the individuals who are really, you know what, people aren't thinking about all of these different issues all the time. They just want to get by. They just want to get by. They want to be able to stay safe in their homes. And so the question, I put it back out there again. The question is now to Premier Wakeham, and you know, certainly a huge congratulations to him and the government, and of course there'll be lots of more conversation about that going forward. But what is the plan? What is the plan for people to heat their homes, to give people a break in a universal capacity?
Yeah, so the universality, fair enough. But then, you know, there's a couple of things we all share regardless of who you vote for. We need to try to stay warm throughout the course of the winter, and we all do need to eat. So that's one of the tricky spots, as far as I'm concerned anyway, is what levers government actually have in the grocery issue. Because when prices go up, boy, it's going to be a month of Sundays before they come down. And shrinkflation is not going to go back to the way it once was either. So again, what does a government do about the price of food? Because we could talk about competition, but that's a national conversation. You know, the Competition Bureau has been crystal clear on this one. 80% of the retail space is held by 5 companies. And that's not only the shelf space, that's also distribution, which is a massive problem. So what would you suggest could be done in the world of affordability at the grocery store?
Well, you know, certainly we know how much that the major corporations, you know, that they're doing quite well while people continue to see their bills, their grocery bills escalate. But, you know, for me now as a new MHA, I'm having the conversations, and I'm going to continue to have the conversations with organizations like Food First NL and a number of the different social agencies throughout the city of St. John's in particular, but throughout the province. Certainly I'm representing St. John's East, Kitty Vitty, but this is something that's very universal. So I'm going to continue to have those conversations with those agencies. You know, we've been certainly keeping an eye on the whole issue of poverty reduction, and that's a huge umbrella that takes in everything that is affordability for people. But that will continue. But right now, as we enter winter, this is the question that's on the table right now to the Premier: is what is the plan to help people with their home heating?
Fair ball, and it's a good question. I'm going to have to turn on the thermostat very likely this week, and so I have a bill coming in as well. Sheila, appreciate your time. Thank you.
Thanks so much for your time.
Pleasure.
All right, all the best. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Sheila O'Leary, the NDP member of St. John's East, Kitty Vitty. Very quickly, and, you know, just in the hope to be factual, yeah, the grocery store chains, they're doing fine. They really are. But I think there's also a difference between how much money they make versus the margin for grocery items. And not to say that Galen Weston's not doing fine, because he is doing more than fine. But they have a suite of services, whether it be at the pharmacy, whether it be at financial services, whether it be at clothing. There's a lot of ways they make money outside of simply selling groceries. And the grocery margins are pretty tight, but I know you don't care because I don't necessarily care either. Going to the grocery store is painful. Like, went yesterday for very little, enough to fill up the bottom of the bag. It was 50 odd bucks and really got nothing. So I get that concern. We all share it. Let's get a break in. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Good morning, Kim. You're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
I'm okay. How about you?
Oh, I don't know. I'm kind of in shock, actually. Friday, I happened to be at the hospital with somebody related to me. We were there from 10 o'clock up until 10 o'clock that night. And by the time he got seen, it was just while he had to stay home. The doctors and the nurses are understaffed. They're overworked. They're underpaid. Everybody and their dog is suffering here in Newfoundland and Labrador in every way, shape, and form. Tony Wakeham, he got to start digging down his pockets and try to come up with some money to keep our doctors in this province. They're taking their studies here and then they're going away to go to work when we need them badly here. It doesn't make sense to me, Patty. It does not make sense to me.
I'd like to see some numbers about whether or not we're seeing any significant numbers of doctors leaving, because I don't know.
God. Oh, my good God. I was talking to a doctor not too long ago, actually. I had a reason to go into one of the hospitals, and he told me he was a resident here, but he had to go away to go to work because there was no hiring. There was no money here in Newfoundland. Patty, I'm telling you right now, I had a doctor for 55 years, and I got booted out of that clinic because they told me I missed 3 appointments during COVID. I'm without a doctor to this day. I haven't got one yet. This happened about 3-4 years ago, and I still haven't got a doctor. I'm not talking about me. I'm not worried about me. I'm just fine. There's people out there, and they're starving. They're hungry. They're homeless. They're poor. Sheila O'Leary, God love her heart, buddy. I'm telling you right now. She's something else and a bag of chips with that. Let me tell you that. She's in the right spot right there to help people, and she's doing it with her mouth, and I want to try to do it with my mouth. I hope my voice is heard, buddy, because I'm telling you right now, there was a young fella at that hospital Friday, and he had a little piece of steel in his eye. He was there from 10 o'clock until 10 o'clock that night, only to leave and go out around the bay to a hospital to get his problem fixed. It's not good. I'm telling you right now, the bottom is gone right out of her. God bless us all. That's what I says. God bless us all. Because if our children, our grandchildren, our nieces, our nephews, our mothers, our fathers got to go to that hospital, boy, oh God almighty, God bless them all. That's what I says. It's terrible. God bless us.
The system is certainly struggling and bending, and many people would suggest it's broken. And insofar as pay, I mean, I don't know what the answer is here. There's more doctors and more nurses in the province than ever before, but yet the system seems to be...
That's what I don't understand.
It's really difficult. Now, what we don't know, based on those numbers, are, how many doctors have a full patient roster or are working full-time or are simply doing pure research, or there's a few breakdowns that would be helpful to know. And with pay, it was just last year the NLMA negotiated a new pay system with the government that they seem quite pleased with. I don't really understand how blended capitation works, but that's what they wanted, and that's what they got.
Who's pleased? I'm sorry for cutting you off, sweetheart, but I don't know who's all pleased about it, because all you got to do is look at their faces. They're overworked. They're stressed out. Every one of them are stressed out. I see it with my own eyes. There was people coming in off the streets that were at the gathering place looking for help, and one of them is on the methadone program, and her lung was collapsed, and she was basically on the bottom of the list. God love her little heart. I, too, was on the wrong path. Now, I got on the methadone program, and I completed it in 2.5 years. And I had my last drink about a week and a half ago, thank God. Thank God. And I only hope and pray that somebody is listening, because there's always hope. If I could do this, ye can do it, too. How bad do ye want it, boys? Nobody wants to be living on the street. Nobody wants to have their hand out looking for money to fill their little stomach. Nobody needs to be on anything. They can be fine, and you can get better just like I did, sweetheart. We need help here, buddy. I'm telling you, Tony Wakeham, please, God, I hope you hears me. Because, listen, you got family members too, darling. We all do. Nobody wants to end up in that hospital. Nobody.
The only reference I was making to pay is not whether or not that makes them happy when they're tired, is that the pay system was changed based on the request. And, let's look at some of the numbers that have been put out there in the recent past. I don't think it's pay is the be-all and end-all. I think if you ask healthcare professionals, if you guys say, what are your number one concerns? Number one concerns would be the inability to get time off, the forced overtime, the balance that is not available there, the relationship with other healthcare pros like travel nurses on the ward itself. Because just look at the bonus that they were trying, or the incentive they were offering to nurses on the casual list to get on the full-time list, the permanent list. They were saying no because they had a bit more flexibility as casual nurses. So obviously, that being said, it's not just about the money. There's more to it.
No, my God, it's just not about the money, but my God, we need more doctors here. We need them in the hospitals, not just here in Newfoundland. We need them at work. We need more places opened up all across Newfoundland and Labrador, right across the bays. They're in there with nobody. What a sin. This place is going to the dogs, and I'm praying something fierce. That's all I can say, Paddy.
And I appreciate making time, Kim. Thanks for calling this morning.
God bless you, Paddy. Thank you for listening to my concerns. I appreciate you.
My pleasure. You're always welcome.
Thank you, honey.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye.
Yeah, obviously there's a lot of focus on healthcare, obviously so. And I do get myself in hot water by wondering aloud whether or not it's all simply about money. Because if it was, you think the system would be working a little bit differently and a little bit better if we spend around $4 billion on a population of around 540,000. Don't think it's the money. It's just spent on individual salaries. Now, would one doctor or another maybe be incentivized or enticed to stay or to, stay working as a doctor or to stay and remain after med school if there was more money on the line? Possibly. You look across the board, I don't think our doctors are paid much differently than the rest of Atlantic Canada. And, when the recruitment conversation is ongoing, that's why I've leaned in on the fact that other provinces seem to be very aggressive in the United States trying to recruit healthcare pros. And some provinces seem to be having some luck at it, which is why I've asked several times as to whether or not that Boston office, which the current premier says he's going to close, whether or not we added that to their mandate, which I don't think we did. All right, how are we doing out there, Dave? Let's get a break in for the news. When we go back, ton of time left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 4. Say good morning to Dion Slaney with the CNIB. Hi, Dion. You're on the air.
Good morning, Mr. Daly. How are you today?
Great today. How about you?
Oh, not so bad. Not happy with the weather, but hey, at least we don't have to shovel this, do we?
I suppose. Although, I'm in the minority on a lot of things. At some point, a little flick of snow is a little bit better than this misery. But anyway, Dave Williams is telling me I'm nuts. So be it.
Very good. Patty, I'll tell you the reason for my call this morning, my friend, is I guess just to promote and let people know of an event that we're going to have here at the CNIB building, 70 the Boulevard, in our main conference room. We're going to do a hybrid event. Actually, Patty, we're going to do both in-person and Zoom calls so that we get a little bit better outreach, I guess, to our participants and clients outside the overpass, I guess, for the lack of a better term. I'm calling it the tech drop-in. As I'm sure you're aware, and a lot of your listeners, there's all kinds of technology, and it's growing by leaps and bounds, basically, especially as it comes to AI. This is also true for technologies that help people that are blind or low vision. I will be doing some demonstrations of some of these technologies. I will showcase the Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses, which is one. These are glasses that you could do loads of things, including help you read menus, documents, all those things. Also, we have a product here on site called the WeWalk Smart Cane 2. Basically, it's a mobility cane that will connect to your phone, your smartphone, and of course an app on your phone, and basically give you step-by-step instructions through a speaker on the chain itself, or even through your headphones or whatever you want to use to navigate you anywhere that you need to go. You can use Google Maps, Apple Maps, or whatever the case. And another thing I'm going to touch on during these sessions, Patty, is some apps that are completely accessible for people that use voiceover or screen readers, whether it be Android or iOS-based systems. And just basically, you can order your groceries on there. I use it all the time, Instacart. I don't drive myself as I'm low vision, and I'm also print disabled, meaning I can't read my phone. So if my phone don't read it out to me, I don't know what it says. So those are just a few of the things. I'm also going to touch on a few of these wearable products like the Ray-Ban Meta Smart glasses that are up and coming. The technology has been there for years. But it seems like there's all kinds of developers, including Apple, Google, and a number of other companies that are realizing that this technology is there, and they're designing and developing products that can help people like myself, low vision, and people that are completely blind. And if anyone is interested, they can certainly email me. It's just my name. It's Deon, DEON.Slaney, SLANEY @CNIB.ca, or they can certainly call me at 709-754-1180, and my extension is 5812, or when you hear the recording, press 1 for Smart Life, and it'll go straight to me.
It's one of the examples where artificial intelligence can be obviously very beneficial. And in that, we're talking about after your vision has deteriorated or someone's completely blind. But also, when I talk about AI in a negative light, it's more about, me having the ability to produce a 90-second video and consume all this power and water. But in healthcare, it's fascinating. So even when we talk about early diagnosis, because I think there's lots of work already going on. One of the leading causes of blindness amongst adults is, what's it called? Diabetic retinopathy, I believe is the right word for it. And AI can be very helpful there. Glaucoma, age-related macular degeneration, and other things. I think the work being done for advanced or enhanced diagnostics is going to make a massive difference.
Absolutely, Patty, absolutely. And like I said, I could take these glasses. I purchased a pair for myself last year, the Ray-Ban Metas. I can go into a restaurant myself, not have to worry about asking the server or my friends or whoever else that might be with me what's on the menu. I can hold the menu up in front of myself. They look like a regular pair of glasses. I can even say, hey, Meta, are there any hamburger options on the menu? It'll list me off the options. I could say, what is the cheapest one? It'll say, well, it's a single burger at $7.99. And then I can say, well, does it anything come with it? And it'll say, yes, it comes with a side of fries, mashed potatoes, or vegetables. Completely independent. I can't do that. Like I said, if I don't have my phone reading stuff to me, where I'm print disabled, I can't read that menu. But I can now, just with a pair of glasses. So it's out there. It's just, I guess the reason why we're doing this, Patty, is to let people know that it is out there. A lot of times, if you're not looking for technologies like this, you don't know or you're not aware that it's out there. And we just want to let the public know and our clients and participants that there are ways around things. So don't feel like you need to take someone with you to a restaurant. If you want to go yourself and relax, well, there's ways around it.
And just because everything comes with certain costs, do you folks have a loaner program so people can see whether or not it's going to work for them? And I have no idea what some of these glasses cost. Maybe you can help fill us in.
Yeah, absolutely. We actually have a program that operates out of our national office. It's called the Tech at Home program. So there's all kinds of technologies for people that are blind or partially sighted. We do know, Patty, a lot of these things are expensive. And like myself, I'm not going to go out and pay $1,000 for something that I don't know is going to work for me. So we actually have a program called Tech at Home where we could, I believe you make a small deposit of maybe $100 or something along those lines. They will mail this technology to you so that you can use it and avail of it in your own home, under your own circumstances, in your own shed, with your own lighting. Figure out within a week or so if it's going to work for you. If it doesn't, you ship it right back. We'll send you back your deposit. And then, of course, your questions are answered. If you do decide that you want to purchase this particular product, we can certainly take payment. You can send the old ones back, and we'll send you a brand new device or a brand new pair or a brand new whatever it is that you borrowed from us.
Excellent program. Deon, anything else while we have you this morning?
No, I don't. I think that's it. I guess I just can let your listeners know now that CNIB is still here. We've been here for 107 years. We do have an aging population, and of course, a lot of people knows that with aging comes eye conditions. You just touched on diabetic retinopathy. We all know how rampant diabetes is in Newfoundland and Labrador, so we do see that quite often, and of course, all kinds of other eye conditions. And if I could just remind people, go get your eye exams done. There's a lot of these eye conditions that are treatable if caught early, but of course, we're also aware that if you lose your vision, 9 chances out of 10, you're probably not going to get it back. So I'd suggest people to be a little bit more proactive than reactive, and your eyes will thank you for it.
Appreciate the time, Dion. Thanks for doing it.
Excellent. Thanks, Paddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye.
Okay, buddy. Bye-bye.
So pretty helpful stuff there, and the fact that you get to give it a test drive to make sure it's for you and works the way you hope it would. All pretty good. Let's get a break in. When we come back, Roger's in the queue there. He wants to throw out a bouquet. I always appreciate that. And Wanda's got a question about access to information. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1. Roger, you're on the air.
Yeah, pretty just to let people know, which a few people that told me about you guys. Last Sunday, it was in the morning around 9 o'clock, quarter to 9. I took a stroke on the right side. And I didn't go over it because I assumed we'd pass off of where we had a family history of strokes on the other side. But that got to the point there about 6, 7 o'clock, and I had no choice but to go. Because it was getting worse and worse, seemed like. So when I went down with the paramedics, I think those guys, you couldn't ask for any better. 3 paramedics showed up. Once you got to the emergency, I was in there and in the emergency 2 days. To see those guys in there, they were absolutely phenomenal. I'm overwhelmed with you know how good they were. Then when 2 days later, then I went up on the 4th floor to see what they was like up there. I mean, the work they did and everything was just words that's not described. You hear more bad about than good. But once you get in there and realize what those guys are doing, I'm overwhelmed. I don't know how to thank them enough.
I'm glad to hear that. So, Roger, did you have a stroke or a mini stroke, or what happened to you, sir?
From what the doctor said on Sunday, there was a mini stroke, which I knew it was going to get me because 51 years old, and my father, when he had a stroke, was only 47, I believe it was. I could have run, but I think it was 47. So, I knew it. I spoke to the doctor, and I was on medication just so it wouldn't happen. I'll never dare know I was stuck regardless. So now, even now, the only thing I don't agree with, after 4 days, they let me go. I wasn't completely ready. To get discharged. I've got no problem with the healthcare what they were doing there. But just that's long ago in the 4 days and just barely struggling. Even now, when I come home, the days I'm here now and they just barely move.
Well, I'm glad the healthcare professionals' intervention has caused you to be around here today to make this call. And I'm sure they appreciate your kind words, because I think you're 100% right. It's waiting to get in the system that is the major frustration. Once in there, by and large, our healthcare professionals are well trained and empathetic and compassionate and professional. Now, some may indeed fly in the face of that, but once you're in the system, I hate to generalize, but there's a lot of good people working in healthcare. I'll put it that way.
Well, basically, just opening that day we was in there, and he was looking at me I'm not used to getting a shower every day, every second day. But then all of a sudden, here was you couldn't do. I had a buddy who was coming to bring me clothes and stuff in. I couldn't take the people who was involved. I couldn't take them enough. The lady was in the morning, after she came in, definitely shaved me and all that. I was. The only thing I didn't agree with is what dealing with him. It's time to our 50s on the same thing to them, let them go early, which is, that's not right. So right now I'm waiting now, trying to get the home care set up, which, and this is not easy on times, because especially now when I'm struggling, I'm still getting a numb on the right arm and right leg and that. It's just, also some days I just want to be somewhere else, because that was easy, but going through it, it's a lot harder.
Well, I'm sure it is, and I'm pleased you got the help and compassion that you received. That's the good news here, Roger. How are you feeling today?
Basically, it was I'm a bit tender this evening. The right arm just can barely move on times. Sometimes you can move more times when the right leg is that's all it's gone norms. But when you're eating, sometimes everything just drops out. But so it gets good and bad. But see what I have to like. Man, I know the German. They always guys mean anyone in there. They try their best, man. They get on like once I get one, I'm ready. I'm gonna get something nice from them and send into them because I couldn't. I'm taking up. I mean, to see where the healthcare is just putting it down, it's just I didn't realize it until I got involved when I seen it, because that's the first time in 51 years that I stayed in the hospital yet. Seeing what I mean, the times that I went in, we ring the bell. Those guys said they're not going to be there right away. They're just going because they're overstaffed, overworked.
Yeah, I mean, I think the reason that you hear so many people concerned or complain about healthcare is when we're talking about our health, it brings that additional layer of obvious worry and anxiety. And so I understand when people have those complaints that they bring forward here, whether it be in an email or a call on the program, because when we're talking about our health, it sometimes gets us pretty worried pretty quickly, and then the emotions bubble over. So I get where people are coming from, and I appreciate you making time, Roger. Anything else you want to say this morning?
I'd like to, listen, I'd just like to tell them to thank you, one is involved with. Thank you so much, and I understand that it's not them, like what I don't understand, I mean, there's one doctor I got blamed for regard to cervical, which apparently from our view, there's one test that did not get done, and there was an EKG, I mean, Gwendale, I was on the machine, I'm claustrophobic, I was once like I was only in the last 2 years. And going that's and when they came in that morning, they said the first thing I want to do is just to see where the stroke took place. I don't want to know. I just want to know. No, I had it because we're the family history. No harm with it. But instead, the first thing when I come out, after I come to the physio and all that, and just a few hours later or something that hour later, he was found discharged because of that. And that's why I was saying I think what it was about. But that's, I mean, this I'm hoping that other people don't go through it. I mean, to see what they're like. It was just being, and clean them. That's what they're trying to credit the nurse who was there for turn up that night and make sure I'm safe that night. I can't take anyone off and anybody there for doing all they could. And I love you guys and we're family here and so. And thank you guys, this organization, for having to get the people speaking out. I mean, I guess it's sad when you hear more about the healthcare, which you really get involved and see how good it is.
I'm glad you called this morning, Roger. Hope you're doing well.
Yes, thanks. Enjoy your day.
You too. Bye-bye. There you go. So again, yeah, lots of good people working in the system. Of course there are. Let's go to line number 6. Wanda, you're on the air.
Hello, Patty. Thanks for having me back again.
No problem.
This is the Divorce Whisperer. I'm the lady who has We Decide, and I just wanted to call and kind of talk a little bit about accessibility, and kind of ironic and kind of weigh in on a couple of comments and a couple of conversations just then. So somebody had called in looking for how they can access the services that I had announced was available now in the province. So I just wanted to give access to my website. If anybody is in need and wants to reach out, they can reach out to the website at wedecide.ca. But I wanted to talk about accessibility, and it kind of goes right with the two conversations that you just had previously. So the lady that spoke about it all going to the dogs, I believe it was Kim, and you said it can't be about the money. So it got me thinking, I don't believe it's about the money either when it comes to the healthcare system and the struggles and the backlogs. I think a lot of it comes to accessibility, and that's a thread that goes through everything. Accessibility. You can have the best information, the best services, and the greatest specialists, but if you don't have accessibility or organization, then those resources just go to waste. People are just running around like chickens with their head cut off. So I think accessibility is a key theme and a key thread to fixing our healthcare system. And it's also the key thread that I've rolled out into the process for fixing our family justice system. It's about accessibility.
Oh, okay, so What specifically do you mean? Because if I ask 10 people what accessibility means, is it close proximity to services or primary care? And in the family justice system, what does that mean?
So I will give you an example. There's two ways to go into the emergency department. Basically, you can go in walking wounded, or you can go in by ambulance. For individuals that might not have anybody to bring them in, or they are in a wheelchair, or they have mobility issues, you try getting yourself to the emergency department for some type of a medical condition without calling an ambulance, and try and get across the parking lot in our weather, trying to find parking, when you've got a broken ankle. So accessibility, I think, is one of the key things. And if you've ever had to go into the emerge with a problem with your foot, then it's the longest journey. And being able to access even the chairs, those self-serving pushing chairs, you can't work those alone. So if you go in there alone, you're out of luck. So accessibility, I think, is one of the key pieces. And there's lots of nurses, there's lots of doctors, you're right. And again, accessibility, when I'm talking about what I've rolled out in the legal system and the family justice system, it's all interconnected when you look at it. Some of these individuals that work in hospitals, the divorce rate is 40%, they say. So some of the individuals going through divorce in hospitals have to book an appointment, have to lose time at work, have to take time off work. So there's lost time and productivity. So having something created that makes it accessible for them to reach it out of hours, business hours, reach it online. If they can't leave their house because they've got a mobility issue, they can access it online. So I see accessibility as being a key thread in that, and in, like I said, accessing resources. But after the last call with Mr. Dion, with CNIB, accessibility for my process, even to roll it out for individuals that are visually impaired. So I can assure you I'll be having a conversation with Mr. Dion before the end of this week to be able to create a version of what I've got done for individuals that are needing the service but are visually impaired. So I think accessibility is a key theme that we can create more effective systems, no matter what the system, if we just look at how people can access it and meeting them where they are at their level. That's just the point I wanted to make.
Okay, and it makes sense to me. And the only reason I asked for you to elaborate on accessibility, because it kind of means different things to different people, right? Some of it's about affordability, some of it's about proximity. That's why I asked that question.
It could be, and it could be language barrier. So
sure.
I currently have my program done in 7 languages now, and it's in testing right now at MUN for some of the languages that I don't speak. I speak English, I speak French, and I can read Spanish, so I was good with those languages. But language accessibility, we have a high number of individuals here from Ukraine, and so accessibility to language in Ukraine is another aspect that kind of needs to be flushed out, you know?
Absolutely. Want anything else while we have you?
No, we're good. I got emails flowing in. I just wanted to make sure that anyone did have my email or my website, wedecide.ca, if they need to reach out and have services. And I certainly, like I said, will be reaching out to the CNIB to be able to give them an opportunity to have a version.
It sounds great, Wanda. I appreciate your time and the work you're doing.
Well, thank you so much, and I appreciate you having me on again.
My pleasure. Stay in touch.
All right, thanks.
Okay. Bye, Wanda. Let's see here. Let's get a break in. When we come back, the Mayor of Fogo Island is Andrew Shea. He joins us, and then we're speaking with you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 2. Say good morning to the Mayor of Fogo Island. That's Andrew Shea. And good morning, Mayor Shea. You're on the air.
Good morning, Paddy. How are you doing?
Great today. How you doing?
Oh, good. I'm calling in about the Public Utilities Board and the zone differential. You know, we have 29 zones in Newfoundland for setting the price of gas and diesel and home heating fuel.
Mm-hmm.
I checked with Nova Scotia, they have 8. You know, and because of those zones, each place is paying a different rate for gas. If you go across the island, you'll see that there's a lot of differences in the price from St. John's to Corner Brook. But I called in to tell you how much it affects Fogo Island. we're on Fogo Island, and we're in Zone B. We're in Zone 3, basically, and Zone 3 goes from Springdale to Port Blanford. Everything inside that gets the same price. 3A, 3B, and 3C is 3A is St. John's, 3B is Fogo Island, and 3C is St. Brendan's. So we are charged extra for being just outside. We're placed outside the zone. If you go across on the ferry and get off, gas is 5 cents a litre cheaper. They're charging us 5 cents a litre more because we're on Fogo Island. We had a hearing last fall. We went and presented our case to the Utilities Board, Public Utilities Board, and they denied our request. And here's the problem we have with it. You haul the gas and oil and stove oil and furnace oil and diesel as far as Ferrol, and from Ferrol to Fogo Island, it's only the ferry. And on the ferry, it's $93 return. That's $46.50 each way. The truck takes 38,000 liters of fuel, so we pay 5 cents a liter more. So that truck coming across on the ferry and going back is basically the only difference, because you have to unload in wherever you go. We had to pump the fuel out. It's costing us $1,900 more than it is to go to, say, Stoneville. And that's exorbitant. That can't be justified. We asked the people why they were charging us 5 cents. They didn't know. And we asked them where it was going, and they didn't know. And it's having an effect on our business. We have 3 gas stations on Fogo Island. We got a lot of fuel being sold. But a lot of people, when they're going on the ferry, now gas up in Stoneville. So that's going to have an effect on us keeping our gas stations. And there's absolutely no reason why we're paying 5 cents a liter, because within the district, from the bigger the district is, there must be different prices to haul the fuel around, and they're just making one adjustment. But they're not making it for us 3 islands.
When this was ongoing, I brought it up countless times, and I was always surprised, and said as much on the show, that I was surprised people outside the Northeast Avalon weren't chiming in here, because the way the zone pricing changed is certainly much different for you than it is for me. Then the same thing like when it goes to the price of propane. It all depends on location. And something that also changed at that time was the PUB traditionally used to set a maximum pricing benchmark for stove oil. That also got eliminated after the review. So I tried to put it out there as a form of forewarning, and it got little to no traction, which I was really shocked by.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous. Like, if you're fishing on Fogo Island, just listen, you're fishing on Fogo Island, you got a big long liner. So you fill up your long liner with diesel. It's $500 more than it is to fill it up in Looseport or Wesleyville. $500 more. I heard Sheila talking about how hard it is for seniors, in Newfoundland, buying furnace oil. Well, on Fogo Island, seniors had to pay 6.5 cents more than they do across the bay, plus what they're paying too much anyway. So now they got an added probably $65 on a tank of fuel for no reason at all. All you have to do is put us into this zone and put a 100 of a cent on the cost of going to Fogo Island to change islands, and it works. It's ridiculous. Ridiculous.
Yeah.
And I'm surprised other municipalities haven't been talking about it, because not only the islands are hit the hardest. They didn't look into what it costs to go out there, because I was on council when Imperial Oil took the tanks from Fogo Island, and they told us it was cheaper to haul it on the ferry that way, because they didn't have to maintain the tanks, they didn't have to maintain, didn't have to pay business tax, they eliminated all that, so it was cheaper. And here they are, sticking us with 5 cents and punishing us for being on Fogo Island. We talk about the difference within provinces. You can't get here to charge you more, or you can't get your products into Nova Scotia. But here we are on Fogo Island. We're being penalized because we're on an island. No other reason. As far as I'm concerned, Newfoundland should be basically divided into 3 zones. And if there's an exorbitant cost to get to a certain place, I'm just talking about the island of Newfoundland now, because I'm not familiar with Labrador. But if there's a place that got exorbitant amount of cost, then you put something there for them and explain to them. But you just don't stick 5 cents a litre or 6 cents a litre on fuel when the cost is not there.
I know where you're coming from, and again, I was, eternally shocked that no one was talking about that story. And then, look, this is, when we just talk about gasoline or diesel, as it pertains to home heating fuels, it's not going to be anybody's surprise into the future where more and more rural and remote parts of the province, especially islands, won't get delivery. I mean, it's already happened to St. Brendan's, so don't be surprised if that's going to be something into the future.
Yeah. But Paddy, what's going to happen is that if they keep putting the price up, times are tough now with $1. You got to save your dollar. If you got a 200 liter truck that takes 200 liters, you go across, you fill up, you save $10. $10 coming back is $20. But now the gas is going down on Fogo Island. We're selling, and then the price goes up. You know what I mean? So,
yep.
So this got to be fixed. Like it's time for someone to step in and say, "Listen, boys, we got to cut down the number of zones. We got to do this fairly. We got to have reasons for doing it. Like you just can't just stick 5 cents on Fogo Island and more for St. John's. St. John's pays a bit more, and St. Brendan's pays more than us. And then you got Long Island. There's 4, and Bell Island even pays more. They're pretty close to the zone. It don't cost much to carry to Bell Island. And they're paying an extra cent or two on the liter. This is crazy. And I'm not saying that we should do this, but I'm here in Fogo Island. You're in St. John's. My light bill is the same thing as yours. Same cost. I know they can't do that with gas, but they can do a lot better job than this. And now that we got a new government in, I'm hoping they're going to look at this and put some regulations and cut down the number of zones and make it fair for all Newfoundlanders,
I know where you're coming from, Mayor Shea. Anything else this morning?
Yeah, I just want to mention, too, that I'm going to be at the Federation of Municipalities meeting in Corner Brook the weekend. And any municipalities that are looking at this, you can see me. Everybody should know me. I've been there for about 25 years. You should come along and have a chat about it. Because if we all get together, maybe we can do something about this.
I appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it.
And thank you.
Pleasure. Bye-bye. Mayor Andrew Shea, the Mayor of Fogo Island. And when he said 5 cents, full well, there's plenty of people listening and say, yeah, how about that 5 cents, the notorious 5 cents, that still remains on the price of a litre of gasoline. Just for clarification, once again, and that 5 cents does not go to Brea and the renewable fuels after that used to be the Combo Chance refinery. It doesn't go to their operations. Former owner Silver Peak gets the 5 cents, and I think there's another couple of cents here and there that we really don't fully understand about why they're in place. So that 5 cents that does not go to Brea, and people say, wasn't that to keep the facility in warm idle while they look for another suitor? Actually, the province put cash on the barrelhead, just about $17 million in cash to keep Combo Chance and Warm Idle to wait to see who wanted to buy it. And in this case, obviously, Brea Renewable Fuels bought it, retooled it, and off they go. So that 5 cents is not going to Brea, it goes to Silver Peak. But anyway, let's get a break in. When we come back, today's a good day to get on the program. If you're in and around town, 709-273-5211. Elsewhere, toll-free long distance, 1-888-590-VOCM, which is 8626. We're taking a break and then we're coming back. Welcome back to the show. Let's go to line number 1 and say good morning to the manager at the Centre for Social Enterprise at Memorial University. That's Dr. Gillian Morrissey. Dr. Morrissey, you're on the air.
Hi, Patty. How are you?
Great today. How you doing?
I'm well, thank you. It's great to talk with you again. I think it was June last time we spoke when we were launching the Fairlead Social Impact Fund. So it's great to be back and have another chat with you today.
Welcome back to the program and happy Social Enterprise Week to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So Social Enterprise Week is the Centre's way and the university's way of celebrating the larger global entrepreneurship week. And technically, Social Enterprise Day is only one day of that week on Thursday, but we turn it into 6 days of events, and we're super excited for this third edition of the celebration.
What I think is helpful before we get into the concept of social enterprise and what its position is in the economy is, if you could paint us a picture of a past social enterprise that people might recognize as to what they do and the jobs they've created or whatever the case may be, so that people have some base understanding. Because I guarantee you, if I ask 100 people what a social enterprise is, I might get half that have some inkling.
Yeah, absolutely. So the global or globally accepted definition of social enterprise is a business that generates a significant portion of its revenue through the sales of goods and services while also embedding a social, cultural, or environmental purpose, sometimes all three, into the business, and they reinvest at least half or more of their profits into that purpose, so achieving that goal. And here at the Center for Social Enterprise, we actually recognize sort of a broader definition. So we include traditional charities and nonprofits and any sort of organization that is pursuing that mission or social mission and purpose, even if they're not 51% self-generating in the revenue department and reinvesting it all. But Newfoundland and Labrador actually has a long history of social entrepreneurship and these types of social innovation activities. If we think historically back to the work of, say, Nonya, which is a very kind of well-known store in downtown St. John's, and the work of women creating these handicrafts in the war times. We look to more modern organizations. I think of Smart Ice and Choices for Youth, which runs several social enterprises here in St. John's. Those organizations are doing work in different areas, but promoting the health and well-being in different areas, we'll say, for youth and young people, and Smart Ice in particular working in the north and working with Indigenous populations across the global north. So social enterprises kind of can come up in any form or working in any industry. We have them all across this province and certainly all across Canada as well. And the feature is really that it's a business or an organization that's pushing towards a social, environmental, or cultural mission.
When people think of an incubator for business, you know, the Genesis Centre, and that's all about tech, how does an incubator work in social enterprise?
So the Centre for Social Enterprise at Memorial is actually the home of the only social ventures incubator in the province. So while we support sort of traditional entrepreneurship skill building, we focus in on the social impact piece. So our ventures get specific training in like social impact measurement, being able to report on and talk about the types of impact that they have and the value they're creating in our communities. And then we do other sort of training that's specific to developing that mission, so really honing in on what the impact is that you're trying to create in the world. And we have 7 ventures in the incubator right now. That's a year-long program, and it spans many industries and sectors, as I mentioned. So we've got everything from corrections and justice to food service, arts and culture, a bunch of different things in the incubator right now.
How do you go about selecting which companies will make it through initial funding and then additional rounds of funding? Because, like, I hate to go back to Genesis, but in the world of tech, you identify a problem, propose a solution, and innovate to solve it. In the world of social enterprise, the metrics are a little bit different. So how do you approach that application stage?
Yeah, absolutely. So our ventures in the incubator go through a rigorous sort of application process as well. They have to submit a written application, and then that's reviewed by a panel, and the top 10 or maybe 12 go to an interview process. And what we're looking for is sort of a reasonable projection of achieving the social impact that they desire to have. So that's looking at whether the person has experience in the space, whether the business is already operational, that sort of thing. And actually, Patty, this afternoon to kick off Social Enterprise Week, we're having a big celebration here in the social changemaker space in the Faculty of Business Administration. One of our social venture incubator entrepreneurs, that's a mouthful, but Mike Taylor is going to be here talking at a student panel. So we have 4 students coming in this afternoon to talk about their experiences at the center programming. And Mike is going to speak to his time in the incubator so far. He's got 1 more semester left with us. So if anybody's sort of interested in hearing about that particular program, you can certainly come in. We've got a student panel starting at 2, and we'll have 3 other students joining in as well, moderated by a familiar face to or voice maybe to radio listeners, Dr. Tom Cooper, who's a professor of strategy here at Memorial.
This is a very general question, and I don't want to put you on the spot, but when, you know, incoming president talk about the future of different programs of study, talk about Harlow campus and the need to find $20 million in savings, and tuition is up but enrollment is down. Where does the Centre for Social Enterprise fall inside that priority list for leadership at Memorial University? Because somewhere at some point, just even given Dr. Morrison's background and given the financial realities at MUN, some things might go by the wayside. So what's your pitch for your organization, or what role do you think it plays in the big scheme of things at MUN?
Well, I believe that the Centre really contributes to Memorial's special obligation in terms of ensuring a brighter future for the province and the communities here in Newfoundland and Labrador. We are a pan-campus centre, so we serve all of Memorial's campuses across the 3 big towns and cities here in the province, so St. John's, Grenfell campus, and Labrador campus, and we connect with and work with communities across the province. So We have a very broad mandate. We work with a lot of folks. We are having significant impact. And Patty, in early 2026, I'm looking forward to releasing an impact report on the center. But I can tell you that just last year, in 2024, we put out over $100,000 of wages to students to work with local social enterprises in the province. And that's focused on scaling impact of those organizations, helping them become more financially sustainable and have a bigger impact and support their work in community. So I really see the center as promoting that special obligation of the university and supporting sort of our public engagement mandate as well.
Really appreciate your time this morning here, Dr. Morrissey. Anything else before we say goodbye?
Well, just that we have a full schedule of events for the next 6 days, so you can jump on our website, mun.ca/social-enterprise. And if you click that big Social Enterprise Week banner, you'll get all the events. And we're certainly looking forward to seeing students, staff, faculty, and general community out this week.
Appreciate your time. Thanks for doing it. Have a great week.
Thanks, Patty. You too. Have a good one.
You too. Bye-bye. Dr. Gillian Morrissey is the manager at the Centre for Social Enterprise. And, sometimes it sounds like a very basic question to get conversations going, but I do think there's plenty of confusion out there about what actually constitutes a social enterprise. There's no technical economic definition or legal definition, but just to give it some sort of context so people know what we're actually talking about is helpful, I think. Anyway, when we hear from Andrew Shea, the Mayor of Fogo Island, talking about the amount they pay for fuel on the island, and of course the feedback is predictable, is that of course it's going to cost more, but not everything costs different amounts based on where you live. So their concerns are interesting, and for starters, the 29 zone confusion is very, very real. And when this was first coming about, I tried to paint the picture as like this, because we didn't know exactly how the formula was going to work, but the base understanding was if we were to see a 1 cent increase in town, it could be a 7 cent increase in St. Brendan's. There was consultations that were held for months. And I'm not so sure what the uptake was like, but I don't think it was very robust. And consequently, here we are. So I get that it might cost more for one product to be delivered or another, but I mean, Mayor Shea's concern is representing the residents of Fogo Island, not the residents of the East End of St. John's. So obviously, and insofar as my comment is there might be a time into the future where, for instance, the delivery of home heating oil, stove oil, might be hard to come by. I mean, we're not making it up because it just happened. And it may indeed happen into the future. The private sector business models may indeed change. So I'm not so sure how that is all of a sudden. Someone said, boy, you're doing that just for clicks. Well, for starters, I don't do stuff for clicks. And secondly, it just happened. And there's still no secured long-term future for delivery of that particular product on that particular island. All right, let's see here. Let's check in on the Twitter box. We're VOCM Open Line. You can follow us there. Oh, and someone says, funny how a Silver Peak asked for and got 5 cents. Well, there was no more gas to be refined on the island, given Come By Chance is now producing renewable fuels. And so, yeah, you're right, they asked for it. And as I've said many times, must be nice to have a business model where the government can subsidize your all of a sudden increased operating expenses. Went on to mention that Irving has been delivering gasoline to this island for a long time and not getting an additional 5 cents. Let's not pretend there's not a premium being paid to Irving for their delivery. I think he goes on to mention that they're refining product from outside the country, Saudi Arabia, for instance. Yeah, and that's not the government. That's Irving. They decided to buy and settle into contracts with the Saudis, and that's where they buy the oil. Ottawa doesn't tell Irvings where to buy their oil. And if you think they should, boy, oh boy, all the isms that get flicked around, it's funny all of a sudden you want the government mandating a private sector company where they can buy their, in this case, oil supply. Interesting. Let's get a break in. When we come back, tons of time left for you. Don't go away.
You're listening to a rebroadcast of VOCM Open Line. Have your say by calling 709-273-5211 or 1-888-590-8626 and listen live weekday mornings at 9 a.m.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 1. Dave, you're on the air.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you, buddy?
Doing okay, thank you. How about you?
Well, I was doing okay until I read VOCM's front page this morning, like I always do, go to the news. And I seen what is absolutely a piece of pathetic political posturing by Mr. Hogan, our ex-premier, who now has confirmed, I guess, basically, I don't know if it's his opinion or where it comes from, but he's convinced that the Newfoundland's take on our uncertainty of the quality of the MOU with Quebec has somehow jeopardized this nation-building initiative of the federal government, so that's why we weren't included in it.
Can't there be some truth to that? Because the projects, like, for starters, the major projects list includes a lot of stuff that's already been approved, and some of it for years. So isn't there some truth to the fact that with something in limbo, why would anyone jump on board for fast-tracking something that is legitimately in limbo? Not because I say so, because Premier Wakeham says so.
Yeah, and it should be in limbo. As a matter of fact, it should not have ever been the only option on the table, written by Quebec, according to the laws of Quebec, and once again going to be something for like 50 years. Well, I don't need to be repetitive to say that if we look back in history, that type of arrangement has never worked for us. But beyond that, there's obviously options that they're not considering, which makes me wonder, because I'm sure that I'm not the only one that realizes the potential of not only signing a dumb deal, which is what this one is, but also the only deal. We're sitting here right now in Newfoundland and Labrador on our soil, which means it is our power potential to be able to develop. Our potential projects in this province encompass Gull Island, 2,250 megawatts. Now, this is above and beyond the Upper Churchill. So Gull Island has the potential of 2,250 megawatts. Lobstick, 300 megawatts. Dominion Lake, 200 megawatts. CF2, 1,000 megawatts. Manipi Lake, 200 megawatts. And Churchill Falls upgrades that could potentially be another 150 megawatts for a total of 12,000 megawatts. Controllable in the lower Churchill Basin, could be developed and not even touch the Upper Churchill agreement. It times out in 41. Okay, well, obviously your first attempt at a deal for us was either A, not very well thought out, or it was thought out without us being at the table, which is obviously what took place and what's still taking place. Ottawa, Mr. Carney just confirmed that if you're not willing, Newfoundland and Labrador, to bend over and take it again from Quebec, that we're not going to include you in nation-building projects. Even though this project that you're looking at in Newfoundland should have more potential for you and nation-building potential for you within your own province, I guess this kind of puts us in the same seat as Alberta, where we were chasing net zero dreams and green energy things and whatever. We're going to put Alberta out of the entire ability to mainstay itself, to be able to look to the future, developing what they're good at and what they have plenty of. Exactly the same deal going on here in Newfoundland right now. Federalism stepping into the way, supporting the initiatives of one province over the other while sacrificing us. And I'm going to tell you what, this Newfoundlander is not exactly ready to roll over on that. Or to say that the Liberals made any right moves, not even one right move, in basically discussing anything on the Churchill project, either Upper Churchill or Lower Churchill Basin. There wasn't much original thought that came into any of that. What came into that was a plan, carte blanche, handed over from Quebec. Oh, there you go. Sounds good to you, yeah? Well, don't read too well, because if you read between the lines, it ain't that much of a deal.
Let me ask you a couple of questions.
To do better is there.
Let me ask you a couple of questions. How is federalism creeping in here? What do you mean?
Well, here's what's creeping in there. Federalism in itself has totally shown its face by us not going to necessarily be part of this foot-over-your-neck deal from Quebec. that we're not going to be considered in any of these nation-building projects. And the nation-building projects are supposed to include building within Newfoundland and Labrador. We're supposed to be part of that nation. And if you want to sit down and look at the weighted side, us versus Quebec, on what will happen with the sale of this power. Right now, there's 2 nation-building projects proposed by Quebec to put transmission corridors into the U.S. to develop more power, to export more power. Well, whose power is that? It ain't Quebec's. They already had a trouble this year in Quebec with producing domestic power for their own needs. Same as us, affected by drought conditions, affected by low generating conditions, reservoirs being down. Well, it's not, don't take an actual rocket scientist or anybody of any great, shall we say, technical or engineering ability to see that all of this power getting developed and transmissions getting developed is to export our power out. Now, should that have arrived with a fair deal for us, where we were really arguably going to benefit as much as Quebec, maybe this conversation would be different. But the problem with this conversation is, and we've just had it shown to us, this deal was not only scripted outside of Newfoundland, but it obviously was scripted without much Newfoundland input. Because if we have all of these professionals, all of these pros that are supposed to be here, and the original team that was put together to scrutinize this deal, the potential of development, while we wait until 2041, because we show them, no, sir, no, we're not going to be taken care of again. We'll continue on as we will. And we'll pick some of these projects, Dominion Lake, or part of the basin that we can get into the export of power, or the power to be able to produce here in connection with industry. There's that many places globally that would love to have a clean and reliable source of electricity that we haven't even attempted to sit down and discuss, or even extend the olive branch that we're open for discussion. We're ready to just sign Quebec's deal and run with it. And if we don't, the federal government is now showing us that they're going to wrap us on the knuckles for not having done so. Pathetic.
Would you be willing to concede that this province will not go it alone at Gull Island?
This province should go it alone at Gull Island, and whatever, like this, the argument will come up, do we have the money? No, we'll do the same as Quebec will do. We'll bore it on the merit of the project. We'll probably entertain some partners to come on that have the money. There are lots of people, there are companies that have the money to develop Gull Island. Even if this government can't, it's out there.
It's not just about access to capital, because you're right, if it has a business model that shows profitability, you can probably get someone to loan you the money. I'm not disputing that whatsoever. The most complicating factor for me, and if you think I'm wrong, just let me know, is Gull with that amount of power, 2,225 megawatts, thereabouts for firm hard output. Yep. It's getting the power out of there is maybe the trickiest part, because Muskrat Falls, as much as it's a dam on the Churchill River, it's as much a transmission project as anything else, whether it be across the Labrador Strait, whether it be down through the Long Range Mountains, whether it be across the Maritime Link. It's a transmission project. Imagine the capacity need to be built to get Gull Island power out of here. I mean, even if you use, I don't know, give us a number, 500 megawatts for expansion of the mining industry in Labrador, it still leaves you 1,800 megawatts with no home until you actually build the capacity. So getting that power, let's just say to the mainland, with the exact same route, Long Range Mountains, Maritime Link, find a home in Ontario, find a home in the northeastern United States. Man, oh man. By the time that gets satisfied.
I think a lot of it, the answer could be in subsea cable. There's an actual proposal on the table now for a company to produce power in Labrador and use a subsea cable to deliver it to New York. So these type of things can be done. Now, you got to also ask yourself a question. If we have been denied by Quebec once again for any transmission ability through their province, for anything, even from Churchill Falls to any new project that would take place. And the only thing that we expect that we're going to be able to do is to sign an agreement that gives us about maybe 15% of the opportunity that Quebec is getting in terms of the price that'll be arrived at per kilowatt hour from power generated in Newfoundland and Labrador. That I would assume to you that our position is much stronger, saying that you can put in a bit of infrastructure, but you can't put in the rivers, you can't put in the waterway. The necessary components that you need to make this project work, we have. Don't overplay what you're going to bring to the table. Don't overplay the fact that you'll come up with the money to get some cranes and some ships and some a work crew together to build the infrastructure, because if we didn't have first what was necessary, there would be no need for the infrastructure there. Quebec just basically proved that they have a plan that the federal government is part of to start routing power into the U.S. And it's not power that's going to be generated in Quebec from solar panels or wind projects or anything else. As a matter of fact, if we were to go in and look at these other networks, these other possibilities that we could for hydroelectric production in Labrador, in the lower Churchill Basin, by damming these structures, we would actually hold back a greater reservoir of water, that we wouldn't be looking at empty viaducts, empty canals that are leading into these river sources where they're down, and you got to turn the generators down because your water is so low. If you held it back, you'd also have a bigger body of water in that area emitting moisture into the air that would turn to rain. The reason that a lot of the rain doesn't happen, the condensation doesn't happen, it doesn't get up above us and drop again. Well, if the water was there, we would even see an improvement from people that I've discussed with weather patterns.
I really don't know much about that. But, look, and this is not about whether or not the current MOU is good or bad, great or atrocious. There's a geographical consideration here. There just has to be. The reason why Quebec has such an advantage over us with proximity to power is proximity to power, is proximity to customer. I mean, to get power out of Labrador goes one of two ways. Not because I say so, but because the map says so.
Yeah, but that's not the only reason that Quebec is doing what it's doing.
But Dave, just let me make my point.
Quebec stood up not long ago and stopped pipelines because it don't benefit Quebec.
Which has nothing to do with the hydro conversation. There's only...
it's just a general mantra inside. I think the genre of what we're talking about, you can draw from the fact that if it don't work for Quebec most, it don't work.
Absolutely. Well, everyone agrees with that, Dave. But, I mean, let's just be realistic. And again, this is not about the MOU. This is about geography. The reason why Quebec seems to be the prime customer, should we have a better deal? Probably. But the only reason Quebec seems to be the customer at this moment in time is because they can get the power to market. And at this current moment in time, we cannot. It's as simple as that. Now, if the feds get involved with any East-West Energy Corridor, it changes everything. If the feds get involved with actually falling for Quebec's lobbying for them to get involved in transmission, which would bring the power from the Churchill River into, say, New York City or New York State, that changes everything as well. But getting the power out of here is as much part of the conversation as an average $1 billion a year in 2041, just geographically speaking.
Yep, and as far as I'm concerned, what I've been told by people in the know, we have the ability to get the power out here, and it does not necessarily have to be by any means other than subsea cable or whatever. And even if we don't get the power out of here, we have the power to offer the industry to come here, to set up industries that create jobs and actually create an economy. We do not have to be all hell-bent to get rid of this power. We've got lots of minerals here. Our absolute mineralogy and our access to things like oil and gas and whatever, with the power, we should be considered an industrial hotspot rather than somebody that's looked at with their pockets hanging out and their hand out and asking, sir, please, can you give us something? We're downplaying what we have. We're downplaying what we have to offer to the rest of the world. I mean, we got immigration going on at an alarming rate. Well, let's bring some immigration for the right reasons. Because we have jobs and because we have something here to offer the rest of the world. I guarantee you, with all the instability that's been created by the likes of Donald Trump and his tariffs and everything else that's been going on ugly in our world, that we represent any type of alternative or anything that could be probably somewhat away from those type of analogous situations that we all hate and somewhat can't control. Newfoundland is a hot spot for activity from everything from manufacturing to the production of precious minerals, at least above and beyond shipping out raw materials, and so many other things. We do not need to hover on the fact that we can't transport this
Nobody
power
said
elsewhere.
you can't. Nobody said you can't get the power out. Nobody said that.
Yep.
I mean, I certainly didn't say it. I just talked about the geographical realities of getting power out of Labrador. We just went through the exact same exercise with Muskrat. The exact same thing. So, anyway.
And you remember talks at one time was this great loop,
that was all nonsense. It was never going to happen. It was a branding exercise politically. I mean, so...
But it sat in there for a long time.
Yeah, but New Brunswick and Nova Scotia, once they're out, the Atlantic loop becomes no loop. Appreciate the time, Dave. I'm late for the break, but I appreciate your time.
Thank you, buddy.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. All right, let's get a break in. When we come back, plenty of show left for you. Don't go away. Welcome back to the show. Dave just walked in the studio and said there was a caller there who wanted some information about how to go about getting the disability tax credit. Unfortunately, you have to go through CRA, which has proven to be pretty difficult. There is an online application, and just some of the basics here. So once you get the disability tax credit, then you qualify for some of the provincial benefits. So it's important to start at the top, and that's with the Canada Revenue Agency. Still, I guess, plenty of confusion about what constitutes eligibility. So, okay. You need a medical practitioner, and for like a nurse practitioner or a family doctor can fill out the application for everything. But for things like speaking or hearing or vision, you can go to other professionals to be part of it, like speech therapist or your ophthalmologist or what have you. But here's the basics of it. If the medical practitioner certifies that you have a severe or prolonged impairment in one category, or you have significant limitations in two or more categories, and you need therapy or other types of supports, then you may indeed be eligible. And I imagine there's plenty of people listening that are technically eligible that have not applied. And here's the categories. If you have bowel or bladder function concerns, if you have a problem feeding yourself, dressing yourself, mental functions, vision, speaking, hearing, walking. Then if you have other ongoing therapies that are considered to be life-sustaining, for if you have a severe or prolonged impairment in one, you can be eligible. If you have significant limitations in two or more, you could be eligible. Then you have to go through CRA. That's the most complicated part here because it is not easy to deal with CRA. And then you talk about folks who, you know, I hear so many times that, well, I don't have a family doctor, so there's no sense in me going down this path. Number one, a nurse practitioner can absolutely be of great help on this front. And there are other pros that can be part of it. So we're happy to share the information. But again, every time I say to someone, well, you have to contact the CRA, then it becomes pretty tricky. There is a callback request service that you can try to organize, which can be helpful. It's not perfect. There's nothing perfect when we're talking about CRA. Then make sure, by chance, you get to speak with someone on the phone, which is a tricky piece of business. There's a few things that you have to have in front of you, and if you don't, you're not going to get any satisfaction in talking with the agent. Number one, the obvious ones. You need your full name, date of birth. You need your social insurance number in front of you. But then importantly, you need a recent assessed tax return, or a notice of assessment, or a tax-related document that is from CRA. So if you don't have that in front of yourself, then you are going to run up against, I'm sorry, I can't help you. On that front, the very best idea is to set up a My Account with CRA, because that information will be right there at your fingertips if when you're able to get to speak with someone on the phone. And yeah, you can use My CRA to go through it online in the form of applying for this particular tax credit. All right, let's check in on Twitter before we get to the news. We're at VOCM Open Line. Follow us there. Email address is openline@vocm.com. So Wally says, it's funny that you're talking about transmission lines. I remember speaking with Sean Skinner on VOCM and asking why the ultimate goal was to develop to Gull Island that the transmission lines currently built for Muskrat Falls would not have the capacity for future development. That was all 100% price point. If we haven't had an update on overall costs at Muskrat since we heard $13.5 billion, it has to be bigger than that at this moment. If you broke it down, and I don't have the breakdown in front of me, but that transmission cost versus all of the work done on site at Muskrat, it's every bit of 8 billion is part of the 13.5. Every bit of 8 billion. And if you're talking about Gull and getting that power out of there on a go-it-alone basis, even if we had investors, whatever the case may be, take that 8, triple it because of the amount of power that you'd have to transmit, then add X amount for increased cost, add for inflation, add for the cost of skilled labor, add for cost of materials. And we're talking about before there's a shovel in the ground at Gull itself to get the power out coming through across the Labrador Strait, down the long range of mountains, across the Maritime Link, and getting to market, I don't know, $20-odd billion just for the transmission of the power? I mean, that's got to be right in the ballpark of what it would cost. Let's get a break in here for the news. When we come back, we're speaking with you. Don't go away.
The Tim Powers Show. Join the conversation weekday afternoons at 4 p.m. on your VOCM.
Welcome back. Let's go to line number 2. Caller, you're on the air.
Hello?
Hi there.
Hi, I'm just listening to your program. You were talking about government disability tax credits.
Yep.
I did that for my mother about 2 years before she passed away. And what I did, I downloaded the form off the internet. I brought it to the doctor. He filled it out and he signed off on it. When I did that, I brought it to the company that did her taxes for her. They forwarded to CRA. About 8 weeks later, she got a letter saying she was approved. And then they adjusted her taxes for the years that were in question. That's the route I took, and I didn't have any issues.
No. I mean, if you're lucky enough to have quick access to primary care and you're going to use the online portal and you have someone who's going to help you out like the tax preparer, it can be pretty straightforward. But it's not the same for everyone, especially for some folks who, ask me about it and they don't use a computer for those types of things. Then it becomes extremely complicated.
I printed the form, brought it to the doctor, and then got it faxed into Revenue Canada. Never had an issue.
Well, I'm glad it worked that way for you. Now, there is some, I guess, potential complicating factors when we talk about the continuous or the ongoing Canada Post strike. And I don't know if they're going to accept a fax any longer, because I've tried to point people down that road just for them to get back to me and say they're not taking my fax. So I'll get an answer to those couple of questions. But I'm glad you painted a relatively easy roadmap, because it can be pretty straightforward.
Yeah, because, the doctor never had any issues. Because if you haven't got a doctor, well, you got a problem. So with Mom, I didn't have any issues whatsoever, which I was really surprised with. But anyway, it worked out for her. And they did adjust her taxes, because after that, a little while later, she got a pile of money from them.
Yeah, and
where they adjusted her taxes for prior years, because she had dementia, so she needed constant care. So he put the date on it that she got diagnosed, and they did it, and it was ongoing then, because they knew dementia only gets worse; it don't get better.
Yeah, that's right. So I'm glad you painted a picture of relative ease here, because when people hear CRA, they immediately think this is not going to be easy. It's going to be the furthest thing from. But hopefully, that's why I bring it up as often as we do, because it'd be great if those who are eligible actually took the time to apply for it, because you never know. Between the immediate savings and then the retro savings is a lot of money.
It's a lot of money. Trust me, it's a lot of money. So if whoever, it's like if someone goes to H&R Block and they get it filled out from a doctor, go to the person that does your taxes, and if they can fax it, if they take faxes, it's a pretty easy process, because you just get a copy of saying that you got it, and it took like 8 weeks for her to get approved.
Terrific information. I'm glad you called this morning. Thank you.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
You're welcome. Bye-bye. Yeah. Well, I'm glad she painted a picture of relative ease and a relatively short turnaround time of 8 weeks, which is not bad when you talk about dealing with the government. I sometimes hesitate to say this is going to be easy, because dealing with the government sometimes can be the exact opposite. Not easy. And CRA, look, there's major concerns about turnaround times at CRA these days. I'm not exactly sure what year she was talking about the initial application for her mom. But the numbers coming out from the Auditor General about dealing with CRA are concerning. You know, the amount of time it takes to actually get to speak with someone, and then the amount of misinformation that's provided by CRA themselves about CRA operations. Not me saying it, it's the country's Auditor General, Karen Hogan, saying it. Let's go to line number 1. Daryl, you're on the air.
Oh, hi, Paddy. How are you today?
Doing okay. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing good. Thank you very much, and thanks for having me on your show. Paddy, I was just to a gentleman on your show there, Dave, talking about the MOU and Upper Churchill and the power in general, and I totally agree everything what he was saying there this morning. And but I also watched, read in the news there, opposition leader John Hogan's talking about how he's disappointed that we never made the cut this time for nation building with hydro, wherever the case may be. But I could tell you pretty well the reason why. When they negotiate that MOU, the CEO of Hydro-Quebec, when he done it, he left that position, and now he got appointed by Mark Carney. I think he's Mark Carney's right-hand man. So when you look at the whole picture, like, you know, he negotiated Upper Churchill, then he left the position, went with Mark Carney as right-hand man. It leaves everything wide open why things are happening the way it's going.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if I can connect those dots as easily as you are, because Michael Sabia, for starters, the feds at this moment in time have nothing to do with the Upper Churchill negotiations or the MOU or any definitive contract. And it's also pretty important to note that Michael Sabia has a pretty long, impressive track record. Beyond being the CEO of of Hydro-Quebec, he was the Chief Financial Officer of CN Rail. He was the CEO of Bell Canada. Let's see here. He was the director at the Monk School of Global Affairs. What else? Deputy Minister of Finance for a few years at one point. So he was also CEO of Quebec's insurance company. I can't remember what that's called in French. Caisse de dépôt, de something or other. So Michael Sabia was pretty much in demand, and now you're right, he's the right-hand man. He's the top civil servant in the country. He's the clerk of the Privy Council.
Yeah, exactly, and that's my whole point. Michael Sabia, there's no doubt he got a tremendous background, and that's why probably where Hydro-Quebec is where it's to today, because you got the talent and expertise of him, and he's been in other portfolios, and no doubt he do have a tremendous resume, and and he knows what he's doing, and like he says, his background speaks for itself. That when I seen my leader of the opposition, like wondering why we never made the cut and whatever, and you're right, like, you know, it's going between two provinces. But when you look at it, he negotiated that deal when he's CEO of Hydro-Quebec, and then he moved on to be the right-hand man. I'm looking at it in a more open-minded way. All of a sudden he left and he got appointed with Mark Carney. Yes, he got a tremendous resume. There's no doubt about it. But when you look at it, he negotiated that deal when he was CEO. Now he's gone with the right-hand man of Mark Carney.
Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
That's open for a good discussion there, Paddy.
Yeah, I don't know.
Expertise is good. He got a tremendous resume, a tremendous background, like you just listed out. I'm not questioning that, but he went and negotiated the Churchill deal MOU, and then after that was done, he left and went with Mark Carney, right-hand man. So if he's the top civil servant with Mark Carney, I'm not saying one way or the other, but we better open our eyes and take a look at the whole picture, not with tunnel vision, because all of a sudden now he negotiated the MOU, so he's not going to want no changes to it because he got negotiated. So as pertains to the federal government, like stepping in and trying to do something better, I don't think it's going to happen because of what already transpired.
Yeah, but now the government. But the federal government, if they ever got involved, it's not about them renegotiating the deal. It'll be about fast-tracking the process, environmental and permitting and all of that kind of stuff, maybe financially, and that would have to be beneficial to both entities. But it's an interesting question as to whether or not Michael Sabia's new perch is good or bad for that project, or those projects, I should say. And I don't know what the answer to that question would be.
Well, I think it's something that got to be debated more and talked about more, because I mean, my red flags are gone up with this, like with the 50-year deal and And I listened to other experts that were on your show talking about the costs of generating more kilowatts. You had him on your show, and like Dave did this morning, I totally agree everything what he said. So, and then you got Michael Sevier all of a sudden left after the deal was done and went with Mark Carney. Yes, he's a smart individual and highly qualified, but my red flags are gone up when that happened. And I don't think on the federal part of it, like they're talking about nation building, critical minerals, natural gas, that's another thing. We got enough natural gas in Labrador, probably look after North America. That didn't even come into the equation. So there's a lot of things that got to be looked at, but I deeply think that when he left and went with Mark Carney, I don't think the feds down the road is going to have any input in trying to work out this deal. I'm just very skeptical, and I think we just got to have an open mind to this and go to course slowly. I don't care what it's up next April, deadline, whatever. I mean, we got to get this right. So take it slow and steady and get more input in on all this stuff and take a look at the whole picture in general. And what jotted me is when I seen the opposition leader, John Hogan, he's dismayed because we didn't get a look in at that MOU. And I said, because the reason why is because the man that was head of CEO of Hydro-Quebec is now Mark Carney's right-hand man.
Right.
So that's my opinion on it.
And I appreciate your time. Thanks for the call.
Okay, thanks, Paddy. You have a great day, and all the best to you and your listening audience and staff at the OCM.
Thanks
for your
Dale.
time.
All the best.
Righto. Thank you. Bye.
A couple of quick ones. So the natural gas included project on the major projects list is for LNG Canada Development Inc., which is just the opportunity to liquefy natural gas and export that, not produce. So, and there's an obvious difference there. And what's also interesting is LNG Canada Development Incorporated is a pretty misleading title for the name of a corporation. Why? Because the partners are Petronas, which is Brazilian, Petro-Canada or Petro-China, which is Chinese, Mitsubishi, and maybe Korea Gas as well. So LNG Canada, a little bit of a misnomer. And you know what Michael Sabia also was in his past life? He was the chairperson of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. Right? So whether or not his position as the clerk of the Privy Council is a good thing or a bad thing, I don't really know, to be honest, but that's a good conversation to have. And when you talk about nation-building projects, obviously the federal government thought Muskrat Falls was. How do we know that? Because they said that. That's how they justified to the rest of the country offering federal loan guarantees to the development at Muskrat, and of which there has been at least three. $5 billion under Harper, initial $3 billion under Trudeau, another $1 billion in that most recent round. So there's something to consider there. And with the Canada Infrastructure Bank, you know what project is in the or under the auspices of that at this moment in time? Another nation-building project, Fixed Link. That's been at the Canada Infrastructure Bank for a couple of years here now. Has there been one step forward taken on it? Not that I can see. Anyway, final break in the morning. Don't go out. Welcome back to the show. Someone just asked, what were we saying about the Infrastructure Bank? Look, for starters, I'm not exactly sure how many projects are currently being evaluated by the Canadian or the Canada Infrastructure Bank, but what I mentioned was the Fixed Link, the proposal to join Labrador to Newfoundland with what was the last consideration was an underground tunnel on rails as opposed to simply drive your vehicle across. There's a variety of reasons why. But yes, that has been taken on by the Canada Infrastructure Bank. It was done at a Liberal Policy Convention 2 or 3 years ago at this moment in time. You know, and some people thought there was a glimmer of hope for that potential project to get off the ground, given the fact that it was at that entity, which has proven to be not all that effective, if we're being honest. Not a whole lot has come out of it, but that's what I said, is that the Fixed Link proposal, in its current state, is in the hands of the Canada Infrastructure Bank. And I do think Darrell poses an interesting question, and I don't really know what the answer is whether or not Michael Sabia, former Hydro-Quebec CEO, the fact that he's the clerk of the Privy Council, whether or not that's a good thing or a bad thing for any expansion at the Upper Churchill, the development of Gull and transmission projects for the both of them. I really don't know. I mean, if we're talking about this potential projects to get on a major projects list, it can't hurt that Sabia is there, because even if the feds get involved with the two lists that they've mentioned so far, the first 5 and then the next 7, it's not like the Fed's getting involved to the tune of renegotiating contracts. It's much more about the regulatory process, as anything. Now, could there be some financial involvement? Probably, if we look down the road, no doubt about it. And I've also been asked what I mean by the fact that some of these projects that are on this fast-track list have already been approved. Well, the fact of the matter is they have. Now, is there still some work to be done with final permitting and final removal or being green-lit from some additional environmental concerns brought up in impact assessments? Yeah, probably so. But a lot of the work has been done, which I think really does change the possibility for the upper at this moment, or the UCMOU, to be involved in a fast-track conversation, because it is kind of in limbo. And for some people, that's a good thing, and some people want to see it die on the vine, plain and simple. But I think the more realistic place for potential fast track would be in what was for Hebron about a 13-month process between the province to negotiate with ExxonMobil about the benefits agreement, and for the board level negotiations on framework and benefits agreements, because they're two different things and it can take time. So maybe, just maybe, that's the role if we're talking major projects. I'd like to be a fly on the wall for the behind closed doors meetings between Premier Wakeham and his Atlantic counterparts, the Atlantic counterparts and the governors of the northeastern United States. Lots of interesting stuff must be on the agenda there. Same thing with the First Minister's meeting today. The first for Premier Wakeham. We're told that agenda is pretty fundamental. Once again, it's about projects that did and did not make the major project office lists at this moment in time. And it'd be nice to hear from the Premier. Maybe we'll see if we can organise some time with him tomorrow. But then also it's the tariff relief funds that have been set up. Haven't seen how they have flowed, realistically speaking, of this province as of yet, but we'll have a look around. All right, good show today. Big thanks to all hands. We will indeed pick up this conversation again tomorrow morning, right here on VOCM and Big Land FM's Open Line. On behalf of the producer, David Williams, I'm your host, Paddy Daly. Have yourself a safe, fun, happy day. We'll talk in the morning. Bye-bye.